Can I get a high five? And action! Stoked to be here today with Margaret Chen, a lifelong educator and the creator of the Reading in Colour, colour-coded orthography. Margaret is an extraordinary human being, a creative genius, and she's got a burning passion to see children everywhere not struggle with reading and writing, because it shouldn't be that hard, especially in English when it kind of is. So she's made a way just to make that so simple, and I can't wait to dive in and find out all about it. Margaret Chen, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Patrick.
Such a pleasure. So I'd love to start with just a little bit about you and your background. I mean, I'm really excited to dive into Reading in Colour and find out more about this extraordinary system. And, you know, it's not totally new to me. Obviously, you know, my kids have had a bit of an experience with it. My little Jack has read Jack and the Beanstalk with your Reading in Colour system. And, you know, I'm thrilled to be able to share this with the world and really, you know, get a deeper understanding of it for myself as well.
The English language is one of the complex orthographies to learn.
What is an orthography?
Orthography,
that's a cool word. I looked at that and I went straight to the dictionary, but...
Orthography is the reading and writing system of a language.
Mm-hmm.
Orthography could be the Chinese orthography, which uses pictographic script.
Mm-hmm.
It could be an Arabic type of orthography. I'm concentrating specifically on the English orthography, which is the alphabet system.
What is Reading in Colour all about? What's the fundamental principles that allow this amazing system to work? What is it?
In my learnings at an early age trying to read, the process is that you need to understand the alphabetic principle. Mm-hmm. The alphabetic principle means to understand the sounds of words, sounds of letters, knowing how to blend them to match the written word. Mm-hmm. The written word is the written script, and that's what makes the orthography. So the alphabet principle for the English language is that you need to synchronize the sounds of words and match it with the written script. I didn't understand this as a child, and I struggled with reading, and it took me a long time to learn how to read. And in the process of trying to learn how to read, which I didn't learn at school, I had to study the origins of what made sound, what made script, why was it a language. So I went into great study in understanding the alphabetic principle, and discovered, for English specifically, that there are so many rules and regulations that is so difficult to comprehend, especially for children, to succeed and to read proficiently. Mm. So in my years of delving into understanding this, I tried to find a simpler way for learning and understanding the alphabetic principle. And this is how Reading in Colour came about. So I started with the colour-coded system, and from there it built into the educational resources, and from the educational resources I developed the methodology. Wow. And this is what became Reading in Colour. So Reading in Colour is a conglomerate of the educational resources, the cognitive conceptual teaching methodology, and the colour-coded system. The colour-coded system is the pillar to the whole of Reading in Colour, and it is a simplified form of addressing the alphabetic principle, so that when children learn to read, using Reading in Colour, it simplifies the process where the rules and the regulations are not necessarily required.
By rules and regulations, what do you mean?
The English language has many irregularities in terms of the way words are spelt and the way words are read. There is a poem that explains, or at least shows, how the irregularities are portrayed when it comes to understanding the alphabetic principle.
We have a look at the poem.
Yes, that would be great.
English as she is spoke. Author unknown. When the English tongue we speak, why is break not rhymed with freak? Will you tell me why it's true? We say so, but also few. And the maker of a verse cannot rhyme his horse with worse. Bread is not the same as herd. Chord is different from word. Cow is cow, but low is low. Shoe is never rhymed with toe. Think of hose and does and loose. Lose. Think of... This is tricky. Think of hose and does and loose. Think of goose and not of choose. Think of comb and tomb and bomb. Dole and roll, home and some. And since pay is rhymed with say, why not paid with said, I pray? We have blood and food and good. Mould is not pronounced like could. Wherefore done but gone and loan? Is there any reason known? And in short, it seems to me, sounds and letters disagree.
And this is what children need to deal with when it comes to learning to read.
And I guess, you know, having learnt English as a child and you know, being in Australian English speaking, we don't necessarily have a basis for comparison. So when you haven't learnt another language, and my wife's Swedish and she grew up speaking Finnish and learnt other languages as well, you see how simple they are, and the letters are the sounds, and the sounds make up the words, and that's how the alphabet is, and that's how the language is. English is not like that. It's interesting and confusing and silly and weird and random and different, right?
The worst thing about it is that as children struggle with dealing in understanding the alphabet principle, and when they don't follow through and grasp the concept, parents either think that they've got eye problems or they've got hearing problems, and worse, mental problems. But it is the alphabet principle that's at fault, causing the child to misconceive their own trust. When they are learning to read and they're trying to follow a pattern and the pattern's not there to follow and it's so irregular and inconsistent, it confuses the child's mind. And it makes dyslexia worse if they are experiencing dyslexia. So it's not the child's fault. And research goes on to study the brain, to study the mental thinking process. True, there is some sort of imagery which shows that there is something amiss, but they've never looked at the alphabet principle to even think that there's a problem there that's causing children to fail in their reading.
What kind of a percentage of children in Australia have an issue with or have a challenge with learning to read the system as it is?
Well, there has been research that has shown about 13%.
Wow,
it could be more.
Wow.
Once a child at 13% suffer from reading or falling behind, they become adults. And so on top of that, there are other children also falling through the net, so it compounds. And that needs to be addressed.
So how does the colour-coded system answer to this?
The colour-coded system is a simplified version of the alphabetic principle. It works concurrently with the alphabetic principle.
So you're not trying to replace our alphabet then?
It's not replaced.
Okay.
It can work independently of the alphabet. It can work in conjunction with the alphabet, and it can work interactively with the alphabet.
Wow.
So once the concept is learned, and the basic principle is that they need to know how to blend words. They need to identify the coding, the colour coding for the sounds of letters, and that's all referenced in charts. It's like a dictionary. They just look at the words in the reference charts, and that's what forms the dictionary. And as soon as they grasp that concept, learning is immediate. Reading is immediate.
Should we have a look at an example?
There is an example where that poem you just read has been colour-coded to show how the colour-coded system works and how quickly it is to work out the irregularities of the spelling in words, and to see how the colour coding unifies all the irregularities of the spelling as apart from the sound.
Perfect.
So if you have, I have some charts here I'd like to show you. I've got it colour coded, and I'd like you to explain to me how you experience a difference, if there is a difference. So
Okay.
I'm going to give you this. It's the colour coded version of the same poem.
All right. When the English tongue we speak, why is break not rhymed with freak? Will you tell me why it's true? We say so, but likewise chew. Bread sounds not the same as heard. Chord is different from word. Cow is cow, but low is low. Shoe is never rhymed with foe. And since pay is rhymed with say, why not paid with said, I pray?
So,
And in short, it seems to me, sounds and letters disagree. That's so much easier. Just having it, I mean, it's remarkable.
what's easy?
To actually, just to read, because before it was like, you see the similar letters and you go, oh, that's going to be a rhyming word. And of course it's not, right? And so it was a trick. But here it's a different colour, and I wasn't even paying attention to what the colours were, but it just, my brain somehow automatically went, that's not going to rhyme, and I could just see the word for what it was, and I could read it. That was my experience of it.
Did you feel that you could read smoothly?
Yeah, it was
rather
much
than...
easier, much smoother.
Okay,
That's remarkable.
that's the experience I've had with quite a few students.
Wow.
Not just so much that, actually what you said to me, that when you look at the colour you didn't even have to think whether or not you're looking at the colour, because it seemed to have visually spoken to you. And this is reading in colour. The pronunciation is in the written script itself.
Let's get into it. Show me more. This is fantastic. I mean, actually having that experience and reading it, remarkable. Show me more.
Well, I have some charts here, and can you say those words?
Way, may, gave, stay, play. I feel like I'm in back in grade 3 now, grade 4. Going, all right, Patrick, read
we'll
for the
see
class. Day, they, vain, great, aid, wait, say.
Yes, you're modelling for your children.
Okay, very
Okay.
yes.
So
Do I get like a gold star or something?
okay, now when you look at these words, what do you see that's different?
What do I see that's different? Well, I mean, they're different words, so they've got different letters. So
Okay, now when you say the words, what is similar?
but there's there's some rhyme there, there's some similar letters, there's some similar sounds.
So have you noticed how when we look at the way the words are spelt,
Yes.
that the vowel sounds, let's say like way, is the A sound,
Yes.
way, and you have may.
Yeah.
Then you look at this word here, G-R-E-A-T. It still has the A sound in it,
Great. Yep.
even though the spelling is different.
Sure.
And when children learn this, just looking at the words, they get terribly frustrated not knowing that They know how to make the sound, but because of the spelling, they don't know how to say the word anymore. And look at this one here.
Vein.
The spelling of vein.
Yeah, it's
The
A
sound
as well.
is exactly the same, and the children, they limit their vocabulary. They've heard the word before.
Plain, vein, play, a, vey, a. Yeah, it's the same rhyme. It's the same vowel
So
sound.
when you look at this, and they're all the same colour, which is the A sound.
Okay, may, way, day, place, day. A, may, they, say, way, a. Yeah,
They just need to know the colour.
makes it so simple. So they need to learn the sound of the colour, and then they know every time they see that colour, whatever weird combination of letters it is, they've got the colour. So
They
how
know
many
how to
colours are there in the system?
There are 18
Well, so that's it. We've got 18
colours.
rhyming vowel sounds.
That's right.
And we've got, I mean, God knows how many combinations of letters
Yes,
to make up
so-
those 18 sounds, right?
Exactly. So this is
Wow.
one of them,
Yeah.
and all you need to, if you can say the word grey,
Mm-hmm.
or if you can even say the word play,
Yep.
you already know how to say the sound.
A.
All you need to do is associate it with the colour.
Perfect. So we've got 5 different ways to say the one sound, 5 different spelling combinations or letter combinations for the one sound.
And this is why children
Ooh.
suffer and struggle
Yeah.
dealing with the alphabetic principle.
Mm.
And the colour-coded system has simplified
Show me
it
some
in
more.
this
Show
way.
me some more colours. This is
Okay,
awesome.
look at the spelling of these words.
Okay, so this is the I sound.
Mm-hmm.
My, by. Well, it's not wind. It's wind. I, try. What could be wind? Wind. W-I-N-D.
Keep going.
Buy, find, mind, lie, kind, buy.
Quite often I hear people say kind
Kind.
or find.
Yeah, because but it's the I sound. Yep.
And they're all the one
Wind.
colour.
Well, that's why I was getting tricked with wind. I'm going, wind, wind?
You
Huh?
can either
Yeah.
way, it's
Yeah.
correct. But
Yeah.
in this case, you can say
It's
it
the I
as,
sound, wind. So then we've
Wind.
got, for this, the
So you
I
have
sound.
one,
I,
two,
Y,
three,
E-Y-E,
4,
Y-E, and I-E.
5, and 6 combinations, spelling
And
combinations.
U-Y. Yeah, so there's 6 different ways to spell. On one card, there's 6 different ways to spell one sound.
Exactly.
So a kid's either got to learn all those different vowel combinations and
To
go,
be able
this
to
is
read
that
the
word.
word.
Or they can just go blue, it sounds like I, and then they can straight away read all those words.
In one hit.
Whoa. Whoa.
So all they need to do is associate the sound, the vowel sound, with the colour,
Yes.
and when they see the chart, even if they have never seen the spelling of the word before, they
They'll
can
know the vowel
immediately say the
Yeah.
word.
Give me one more. Give me one more colour.
Oh,
This is
okay,
cool.
let's see.
Fuel, you, few, Q, view, new, news, Q, juice, use.
So what sound is that?
You.
Yeah, you. Okay, so you're familiar with the words because you
Sure, yeah,
have
of
learnt
course.
them. With kids, they struggle with this.
Yeah.
But
So
when-
what kind of age kids are we really, when, at what age in the Australian education system, when are they supposed to be able to have this kind
well,
of
by
sorted
the
out?
age of 8, they should be reading well.
Okay, so that's kind of grade 3.
Grade 3.
They should be
They start
all over
learning
this.
at grade 1.
Right, okay. So the U sound, this is this dark blue. U, we can do E-W-E, Y-O-U, fuel, U-E, V-I-E-W, E-U-E, E-W, U-E, we've already, U-E, that's a different one. E-W, now we've got that. Just the U on its own, and then U-I. So there's 9 different ways to spell the U sound.
Exactly.
Or
And-
one colour.
Or one colour.
That just sounds like you.
Exactly. And
This
you
is
can give
brilliant,
them
Margaret.
you can give them a word, a long word,
Yes.
where it has a combination of colours,
Yes.
and still be
Of
able to
course.
pronounce the words when they understand what the
Mm.
colour sound is related or
Yeah.
associated to. So it's very
So
powerful.
good.
It's very quick.
How do you teach this? How do you get kids to understand it?
Depending on age.
So say young kids, so take a grade 3-year-old who's been through grade 1 and 2, the rest of his classmates are reading, at an acceptable level, and they're, either reluctant to read or not wanting to read because they're just, they've got all these different vowels in their heads and they're looking at it and it's just a mess. They're going, I haven't figured this out. Maybe I was away that day.
Well, you start off with the known.
Okay.
And perhaps the best approach is nouns and what they're familiar with. So if they're 5-year-olds, they know cat, they know tap, pen, whatever, the easy words.
Very simple words, yep.
The words that parents have spoken to them about, that they're familiar with, sit down, or that's an action, but mainly the concrete, and it's the easiest way to address the approach to reading in colour. So you would start off with a picture of a cat, and they'll identify, what is that? Oh, it's a cat. And then what I would do is make sure they know the difference between the real cat and the animation of a cat, so that they know that there is a difference between a fiction concept and a non-fiction concept. And this is why I say that it is a cognitive approach and conceptual approach, because we start off with images, simple images at first, and then you bring in the word symbol. So you can start them off with, oh, this is a picture of a cat. You have many different pictures, match them up with the animated one. So they can have a cartoon drawing so that they conceptually see the difference between a fiction and a non-fiction.
Perfect.
And then, number 3, you bring in the word, the full word, not the letter, the full word. You can start off with maybe 5 pictures to begin with, so that they can say, oh, those 3 letters, and they start to develop detailed, finer thinking skills. So they try to decipher once you've taught them that cat is with this, and you give them exposure, and you ask them, okay, you've matched the pictures, you've matched the animation, what is the symbol? The symbol is the word. They find the word, you do it a couple of times, give them that activity, they match the word, they see the word, they say cat, they see the 3 letters C-A-T, and once they're familiar with that, you break down the letters one by one, but they see the whole word first, and then you break it down into their sounds. After that, you get them to write it so it consolidates in their mind, and it imprints their thinking, so that they know it becomes an automated process.
So that's kind of the standard process for
That's
children
the
learning to
initial process.
Yep. And how do you introduce the colour system?
The symbol of the word already has the colour in it.
Gotcha.
And then the 4th stage is the word without the colour.
Okay.
So they transition off.
Yep.
Because ultimately...
They've learned to recognise the words.
Yes. So this is the stepping stone. Reading in colour was developed based on a mathematical concept. It didn't start out that way, but I found the formula for it.
Really?
So the mathematical principle is based on a theorem, and the theorem is A equals B. When A equals B and when B equals C, then A equals C. That's...
Okay, yeah, I follow.
You?
Yeah.
So what is A? A is the word itself. Okay. B is the irregularity in the spelling of the word.
Yes.
C is the colour.
Yeah, I see that.
And through that concept, it regulates the irregularity of words.
Yes.
And that...
Because we've got a word here We've got, it could be spelt, you know,
All
however
over the
they
place,
dreamed it up
yes.
back in the day to go, hey, this is how we're going to spell this word, but it's always the same colour.
It's always
So
the same
then they can
colour.
go, the colour is the sound, I get that, A equals C, and then, oh look, we can spell it lots of different ways. We can spell that sound lots of different ways.
And even in the future, if they decide to change the way the word is spelt, still consistently so.
Yeah.
If you are a child, and we don't know how intelligent they are, some are highly capable of conceptual understanding. Others have no conceptual understanding. Some children may be weak in spelling. Others may be weak in reading but good in writing. Some may be very strong in listening, or they're strong in oral skills. As soon as the child goes to school, they're grouped in their age groups, and then they're in one class, and the teacher needs to differentiate the child's learning. But in this case, with reading in colour, they use reading in colour, and then they can start at their own pace. They can develop their conceptual understanding based on their individual conceptual understanding.
Beautiful.
And they don't need the teacher there to say, you've got to wait for me to tell you, to explain it to you. They can independently use their mental gymnastics to sort it out for themselves.
Wow. So what we've really done is take it from having to learn hundreds and hundreds of different vowel combinations and learn the sound appropriate to each of those different combinations, down to now all I need to do is just learn 18 different colours and the vowel sounds associated with those, and then when I read, and it's all in the colour-coded system,
Yes.
then immediately I know that colour is that sound, and then I know what that word is.
The essential prerequisite, as I said, is that they need to know the colour and associate it with the sound and blend the words together. And this can be used for any language, any orthography in the world. I was in Bali. I did a workshop with Balinese teachers. I scripted the colour into the Balinese language, and from there I explained that when they're familiar with the colour coding in their language, it's very easy to transition into learning English using the same principle.
So this isn't just for learning to read a native language, but also learning to speak a second or a third or another language.
Yes, and it also conserves their own language as well.
Wow, of course.
So rather than learning just English, they can maintain their own learning through their language, and it crosses over. This is why I said it was interactive.
So powerful. Because it's the worst thing when you're learning a new language, you've always got that horrible accent because you've got the vowel sounds from your language, not the vowel sounds from their language. But this bypasses all of that because you're not looking at the letter going, you know, in English there's 10 different ways to say that letter. I wonder which one is appropriate for this language that I'm learning.
And it's there staring, yes, and it's there staring at you in the face. It's non-discriminating. It's universal. It is economical. It's efficient. It is a success for children. It's immediate results for their learning. They don't need to wait for the teacher to hold their hand to read the next word, where they can do it in one hit without them.
Perfect.
How powerful is that? They really want to develop children's intelligence. I know that. The intention's there. But the system's not going to let them do it fast enough.
What do you mean by the system?
The way literacy is taught at the moment.
So you're not talking about the teachers or
I'm not
the
talking about
bureaucrats,
any
it's
teachers.
about just the way that we're doing it.
There have been many approaches to dealing with the alphabetic principles. There's a lot of research that's been done, but the problem of the alphabetic principle is still there. So whatever research they do, whatever theories they come up with, whatever principles they advocate, it's all based on the problem of the alphabetic principle. So how far they go is not going to be any further than the problem that is there because it hasn't been addressed.
And the core problem, as you're saying it, is that there's still half a dozen or a dozen different ways to spell each of our vowel sounds.
And reading in colour has simplified it in such a way children will not struggle the way they have been struggling.
Wow.
Whether they're intelligent, whether they're not intelligent, they still have to get over that hurdle.
Tell me, what's the, when we looked at, potentially, the numbers say at least 13%, and as we suggest, it's far more than 13% of children who are really struggling to read in the current system, right?
Mm.
What's the future for them? Like, what's the natural outcome? If someone goes through primary school, through high school, and then out into the workforce with, let's say illiterate or with major challenges around reading and writing, what's the prospects for them? What's their future look like?
I fear for those who are struggling in life, in society, are at the mercy of those who have.
How do you mean?
They either have to bend to their ways, and whatever way that is, I don't know, struggle to survive, and if they can't, they'll do anything.
Wow.
Don't you reckon?
Of course. Do you see
they'll be part of the underworld.
Do you see a strong correlation between crime and illiteracy?
Well, if you do a study of those who are in jail, the percentage of those who are illiterate correlate highly.
Really?
That's very sad, and they shouldn't be there.
I've been looking at this as a program for primary school kids.
Mm.
This is for everything.
It
Imagine
makes
we
me
took this
very
into
sad.
the prisons.
It makes me really sad to think that all these people who had the opportunity, and they're real beautiful souls,
Yeah.
they're people, and they've been trampled on in this way because as much as the parents want to help them, as much as they want to help themselves, they've been denied, and it's not their fault. That's what makes me so sad.
What is it about that? Why do you care so much? I mean, different people care about different things, and I can see how deeply personal this is for you.
They shouldn't be there. They shouldn't be suffering the way they are. It's not right. Sorry.
Sorry for nothing.
No one has seen through that. No one has seen the fault of why they're there. But in future, with reading in colour, it will solve a lot of those problems. That's what I believe, and that's what I hope.
You mentioned it was difficult for you as a young girl learning to read. When did you, obviously you can read quite well now.
I still have fear of reading in public.
When was it? You can read okay on your own though?
I can read on my own, but it's the conditioning process. Whereas if you learn as a young person and you've been encouraged with that confidence, you don't have that fear.
Yeah.
But I've grown up with that fear, and I struggle still. I can read, there's no doubt about that. But it's the fear that I have that causes me to struggle.
So how old were you when you said, "Oh, now I can read. I get this. I'm confident to read"?
I was 19.
Wow.
And I was still struggling.
Yeah. So two questions in one, and you can answer how you like. What was it like as a young girl not growing up, and even right through your teenage years not being able to read? And then how did you come to, realise what was going on, and what did you do about it? Tell me the whole story. Go right back. Tell me about that.
I remembered as a child, the teacher asked all the students to read in class, and my heart was pounding. I was sweating, and then it came to my turn, and lucky I had a good friend sitting next to me, and they were helping me along. But it was a crutch for me because it didn't give me that independent learning. I was relying on other people. And as time went by, it never got any better. In fact, it got worse. While my classmates were getting stronger in their skills, I was still at the end of the other end of the stick. I was still unawares, not knowing, and couldn't understand why. And the teachers didn't explain to me. So I grew up with moving forward in schooling, not understanding what it was that I was feeling so troubled about. And at home, my parents didn't speak English very well. They came to Australia. They had no real support. My mother tried to learn English. We had no English books in the house. We had Chinese books. Not many friends supporting us, no family members supporting us. And always at home, not mixing with classmates much. And growing up in a very insular environment. So my language learning for English was extremely limited. But I was in a protected environment. My parents protected me. Everything that went on outside, I was protected. So even if I didn't understand or didn't learn, I was still loved. And that's what got me through. Suddenly, my father was asked to go overseas, and his friends heard that we'd come from Australia. We'd been living there for a long time, and one of the parents wanted their children to learn English, and they asked me to teach English. Just imagine that. And I thought, hey, I can teach English. I'm pretty good at speaking English. And then from there, I began to realise the concept of reading. I began to study vigorously how to read, teach how to read. And it's through teaching those experiences that I had learnt to read.
What age was that?
That was coming on to 16. That's when I had my first private students, and then slowly, gradually gave me more experience in understanding the reading process. And my parents went overseas again to another country, and the same thing happened. And I thought, hey, I must be pretty good. And so that's how I developed and strengthened and started to understand the reading process. And that is why I know that it's the alphabetic principle that is the cause of so many problems in children learning to read. And especially teaching foreigners, I was able to understand many principles of the language. I studied the phonetic system. I studied the languages that they spoke. Spanish. I studied how different languages were taught. And then I found a commonality, and through that commonality, I developed the system. The common denominator. No one knew the common denominator. I found the code. I found the secret code to understanding how to simplify the alphabetic principle.
Wow. That makes so much sense now, understanding that, that painful and confusing childhood of not understanding why all the other kids seem to be able to make sense out of this strange mix of letters, and why you couldn't make sense of it, to go, I'm really going to dive deep into this, into your later teens and early 20s, and really understand it, and then find a way then to be able to teach it to other people who are struggling with it. And everyone can relate with that. I mean, I don't know anyone who can't think of an embarrassing time in school. Kids can be so cruel. Teachers can be cruel. Right? But everyone's had this experience where you're put on the spot and asked to do something, and maybe you're not prepared, or maybe you're not confident, or maybe you're not ready, and you're just freaking out because you've got to do this thing, and then there's that embarrassing moment. And in school, you know, that can be so, it's all about your friends, it's all about, you know, that classroom, that's your whole world at that time, right? That and your parents, your family.
Yeah, and I'm just thinking that this must have been a course in my life that I was destined to experience, because without this experience I would never have been able to come up with this solution. And the English language is developed from 500 years ago, and to be able to solve a problem from as early as the time of 500 years ago, you have to go through hell. And if I hadn't have gone through what I'd gone through, I would never have discovered the solution to the problem. Wow. So I feel it was destined for me to go through what I had to go through to get to that little gem.
Wow. It's a huge gem.
No, well, it's a huge gem. It's a huge gem.
Would you do it differently if you could go back in time?
I believe that everyone is destined in their path of why they're here, and there's an inner compass that if things are going bad, you're going to be redirecting your life's path. So all that went bad for me, I had that inner compass to tell me this is where you're going. And this is what you have to do to get there. So despite all the educated people who do really well at school, who excel, get their jobs or whatever, the education system is a convention. It's a tool which we as people need to use because of the structure of society, the way society is developed. We have to have tools to help us function cohesively, harmoniously. But if we're controlled by this convention, we lose our inner self. And our inner self has that compass. I experienced this. I failed at school, but I had this inner compass to give me a direction to do something very important in life. And everyone has that little star child that guides that way. So despite education, it's necessary to be schooled because people need to be disciplined. And if you don't get schooled by the education system, you'll get schooled in the hard knocks of life. What do they call it? What's the expression? The school of knocks, or the school of hard knocks. So it's either one or the other, but we're going to be schooled regardless. So despite all that schooling, it helps you along the way to achieve what your inner self, that inner soul maybe, that inner desire that's concealed to get what you want done for the purpose of why you're here in life.
What a gift. Thank you so much for sharing, and I can see how, I get how painful that experience was, and I love how you're able to look at it now and be so grateful for that painful experience, because it's led to this, this amazing revelation that is going to, that's already saving so many kids from that same pain that you went through. And you can kind of say to them, hey, listen, you don't have to be embarrassed. You don't have to be illiterate. You don't have to struggle with reading and writing. I've made it simple. I know it's really complicated and it's weird and confusing, but look, here's how easy it can be. Wow, what a gift. What a gift.
And never forget, you have an inner purpose in life, and all these learnings that you get, experiences that you have, will guide you to where you need to go with your inner self.
So tell me, say that we have, this is working fabulously. We don't have illiterate children coming out of school anymore. Everyone's super confident in their reading and writing. And they've tapped into this idea that I've got a compass that's guiding me, this inner star child that's always heading me true north. What could society and culture look like? What could the world look like when we have everyone graduating with high levels of literacy and right on purpose, really tuned in to that inner compass? What kind of a world could we live in?
That world, which will happen to live in, will speak for itself. Because I know it's going to be good.
Yeah.
But it'll speak for itself.
Beautiful.
It'll speak for itself.
Oh, Margaret, I'm so grateful for this time we've had together and for this work that you're doing. As a parent, I'm thrilled that you're doing this work, and I know that parents and teachers who are connecting with this work, who are reading your book, who are watching these videos, are just, we're all saying thank you and cheering you along the whole way to, for this remarkable work that you've done. So thank you so much, and thank you for taking the time to sit with me and explain it. It's absolutely remarkable. I'm so grateful.
Thank you. Well, thank you, Patrick, and it's the benefit for those to come. And they will answer for themselves, and they will acknowledge for themselves. I can only lay the groundwork. They have to make the effort. And this is how it will raise the level of consciousness. Because what happens is that people by nature, they keep advancing forward. And as they get to a level, and this is what Nikola Tesla said, once they get to a particular level of standard, they go to the next level, because by nature people like to challenge the unknown.
So Margaret, that you have, you've got your book, you've got the workshops, you've got private tuition that you offer, there's courses, there's online courses, there is the actual speaking events, workshops, then there's all the resources as well that are available for purchase or for download. Where can people go to find out more and get access to all this kind of stuff?
They can go to the website, readingincolor.com.
Readingincolor.com. Fantastic. Well, Margaret, again, thank you so much. So grateful for the time we've had together. It's a remarkable journey that you're on, from painful experiences right through to having this realization, to now developing this work, having this gift, and now just offering it to the world. It's absolutely extraordinary.
Patrick, this has been an amazing journey for me, coming here to speak to you and to be able to talk about the work that I've done, which I really hope will benefit a lot of people, and that the education department will look at it and consider it as maybe a potential for helping a lot of children with their reading.
Well, I see parents and educators everywhere will absolutely see already seeing the benefit of this system. So it's a bit of a done deal, really. When you look at it, you can't help but see how remarkable and extraordinary it is.
So thank you for having me.
My pleasure.
And I guess this, as I said earlier, was meant to be.